Thank you, everyone. Welcome. This is our second workshop of our project funded by Gerda Henkel Foundation. It's a 3.5 year project, and it is on democracy, authoritarianism, and digital technologies in 4 Muslim majority countries, Turkey, Egypt, Iran, and Pakistan, and how the governments, but also non-state actors, dissidents, and other groups have been using digital technologies for their own cause. So the governments for authoritarian purposes and others for democratization. So we've been working on this project for about 1.5 years. We've submitted a few papers. We published a few opinion pieces. And a few months ago, we had our first workshop on digital technologies. We had something around, as far as I remember, 14 papers, and we submitted to Edinburgh University Press. Now it's under review. Hopefully it will get published next year. And this is our second workshop, and we decided to just focus on information operations, not only disinformation, but different information operations done by not only state actors, but also non-state actors. And we'll have 16 papers presented in this workshop. Today, it's the Zoom-only version, but tomorrow we'll have a full day, 3 panels, 4 papers in each panel. It will be hybrid in Deakin University, Berwick campus. And for each paper, we have assigned 2 discussants, and 2 discussants, each of them will discuss the paper for 3 minutes. It will be a little bit quick, but then we are requesting them to send their detailed feedback to the authors. We put them in contact with each other, and we couldn't get all paper drafts, but most of them are with us, and they are with the discussants. More than 2/3, more than 10 papers. And the others send their PowerPoints. So based on their presentation, they will get feedback, and also we will have Q&A session. It is open to everyone, and we hope it will be a great exercise, an opportunity for us to get to learn each other, learn from others, studies, and so on. This project is led by Shahram Akbarzadeh, and I am co-leading it. He is the leading academic of this project. And we also have Galip Bashro working on the project, and also Ali Mamouri. They are all in this room. And we are organizing this workshop as a massive Middle East Studies Forum, whose convener is Shahram Akbarzadeh, but also Alfred Deakin Institute's GDP stream that I am co-convening, the governance, development, and what is P? I forgot. Anyway, so I hope this will be an enjoyable experience for you, and I'll just leave it to Lydia to moderate the panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ihsan. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to just first start the session by acknowledging that I am sitting on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people here in Melbourne, or Naarm, Australia. I'm really delighted to be able to open and chair the first session for this workshop, the Strategic Digital Information Operations, Democracy, and Social Cohesion Workshop. Special acknowledgement to the workshop organizers, Professor Shahram Akbarzadeh and Professor Ihsan Yilmaz. We have a number of really interesting presenters and papers for this first panel, which is on populism, authoritarianism, disinformation, and sharp power. We have a few just slight changes to the advertised schedule. But for this first session, I'd like to first introduce and invite to begin Najmadeen Bakare from the National University of Science and Technology in Pakistan. And his presentation is on misinformation, visibility politics, populism, and digital information, the Nigerian general election. I will just before handing it over to Najmadeen, just quickly reiterate just some housekeeping, that the presentations are to stick to 15 minutes. I will be rude and interrupt you if you go over. So please just do that. And then after each presentation, we'll be hearing from two discussants who will briefly offer their thoughts. And then after all of the presentations, we'll have a Q&A where participants will be able to offer any feedback, to put questions to the presenters. Perhaps the best way that can be done is to put it in the actual Q&A, and I will then read out the questions in the Q&A function of Zoom. So with that, Najmadeen, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much for the introduction, and thank you also, Professor Chams, as well as the institution for giving me this opportunity to speak in the next 15 minutes. So spelled out in the slide, that's this information, visibility, politics, populism, and digital information, and analysis of pre and post 2023 Nigerian general elections. Okay, to quickly go through the slide, let's say, just a brief intro into Nigeria and its democracy. We know quite well that Nigerian as a polity has experimented with different types of governmental system, military rule for a very long period of time. And probably I think I should put it in the context that Nigeria seems to be the largest populated country in Africa, with almost 215 million population, the giant in West Africa, and all of that. However, democracy returned back to Nigeria in 1999, and ever since then, the country has been fairly struggling with democratic credentials all through, though I would not say it's a perfect democracy in the Western terminology or in the Western context, but still, it has maintained that credential of being a democratic state. One of the historical contexts of democracy or politics in Nigeria is that it is always very much ethno-religious punctuated. So we cannot divorce the ethnicity and religiosity from the Nigerian politics. However, this has changed since 2015 or 2019, and the latest election, which was in 2023, where we see a huge influx of digital technology contributing to how we understand politics in the Nigerian context. I would also say that this evolution has also brought what I call the digital populism. What do I mean by digital populism? This is a kind of populism where a political figure emerged as a result of the internet's proliferation by exploiting sentiment among the youth and the middle class in Nigeria. And this populism here does not connote the populism as we see in Europe or in other parts of the world, whether it is in the United States. This is more of a non-ideological populism. And that's one of the reasons why I have termed it as a digital populism. Okay, this particular work of mine, the chapter, has certain conceptual consideration, which is visibility politics. So by visibility politics, one can look at it from different dimensions. First and foremost is how we try to connect visibility politics with identity politics and power relations, as different scholarship has mentioned. In the same way, by trying to bring it down to the Foucauldian school of thought of power politics, how power transcends mere influencing others, but equally it entails challenging the power. Yeah, I try to understand how visibility politics, as through the digital media, has given that leeway, opportunity for the youth as well as the middle class to challenge power in the Nigerian context. Otherwise, this wouldn't have been possible if election remains within the physicality of the public sphere. But the fact that electioneering process or electoral process and electoral discussion has moved or transited away from the physicality of the public sphere into the cybersphere, that has empowered many Nigerians to challenge the power, to challenge the narrative of the state. Nevertheless, these situations remain very asymmetric in nature, and that asymmetric nature is now being cemented through the digital technology. So we can say there is a level, an equal level play being enabled by the digital technology. And of course, when we talk about visibility politics, we cannot isolate it from the idea of gaining prominence within the public sphere. This, of course, would be to challenging the regime of truth, as Foucault will have told us, or speaking to power and production of alternative narrative. Lastly, but not the least, is that with digital technology, there is a trend now, the pre-election, during election, and the post-election, is that there is a lot many expressionism going on in Nigerian politics, where I'm not here to criticize digital technology, and this is what I have actually underscored in my paper, that the problem is not digital technology itself. However, it is the instrumentality of digital technology. Now it has created a huge polarization within the polity in Nigeria, and it has also caused a more generational polarity between people of the 60s or 50s and the new generations that are more acclimated with this digital technology. As we have seen in the very first slide, that 95% or almost 60 to 70% of the Nigerian population is youth, and 95% of that are very much very close using information, I mean the internet. So we see a huge number of Nigerian youth and the middle class availing the digital platform in different form. However, one would say that we cannot discuss visibility politics without looking at different visibility strategies, which include different instruments like conferences, seminars, and more importantly, the digital platforms, or what we now call the social media platform, where people have been able to enable and empower themselves in galvanizing sentiment. So what the 2023 election have proven is that ethno-religious politics would remain very viable in the Nigerian polity, number one. And number two, the polity has been more polarized, as I've mentioned earlier, if we look at it from this lens of visibility politics. Now, a very quick one, just to complete my discussion, because I know time is running out, that disinformation and misinformation are strategically being used for identity politics and politics of visibility in so much of a way that you see that on one hand, the state has not been that, I would be very honest here, that the state has not been that partisan. The state sits on the fence, but those who seems to represent the state are contesting with the society. So in my understanding, I see it as more as a conflict, a tussle between the state and the society. But how is this conflict being played out? It is being played out through the utility of the digital technology, particularly the social media. So here comes this identity politics between the Muslims and the Christians and different ethnic groups in the country. Similarly, the manipulation of digital media to influence election outcome, that was very prevalent in the last election, so much more that there were a lot of information, and here comes the notion of post-truth. And I am not using the idea of post-truth in that derogatory way or in a critiquing it. I'm only using it as a way of generating an alternative narrative. not as an unverifiable narrative. Though post-truth, as we know it, might generally be considered as the creation of knowledge or the creation of information which is not verifiable. That is not exactly what I'm looking at. Aside from that, it has also given an opportunity to the Nigerian political players to strategically use the digital media in influencing outcome of election, and there were a lot of what we can call pre-election rigging. So similarly, this digital information has also been employed to generate and propagate conspiracy theory against opposing political parties. So today, as we see in the Nigerian context, like I said earlier, that democracy returned back to Nigeria in 1999, but ever since then, we've not reversed to military rule, but still struggling with democracy. And as a result of that, we have seen a populist agenda, which is now beclouding the polity of the country. And this populist agenda, I would say it is more of a visibility politics, if I put it in that context of my conceptual framework, where we find a non-ideological populist leader who would have been insignificant or would have made no meaning or would have had no political geography had it been there is no digital platform for them. So this is one, I would say, plus mark for digital information and digital platform. And of course, there have been an exacerbation of ethno-religious polity, deepened political polarization, and ethnic and religious tension as followed after the 2023 election, though it was there before the election, and it has increased astronomically after the election. But contextually, I would argue that this is more of visibility politics of this ethnic group, number one, and the religious group, and number three, generational, between the youth and the adults. And lastly but not the least is that through the digital media or digital technology, there's been a resurgence of special nationalism, whereby nationalism within Nigeria and nationalism among the Nigerian diaspora. So this is one good plus point, I would say, in my understanding, that the digital technology, the digital media or digital platform has created a kind of cosmopolitan thought among Nigerians, diaspora, and those who live within the confined, the boundary of Nigeria, to creating what I would call a political convergence that's tried to challenge the corrupt narrative in the country. One of the arguments that we see most in the discussion in Nigeria is that with this advantage of digital information or digital technology, we have been equipped enough to change the narrative. And this narrative has come to stay, and this will continue even in the forthcoming election. I want to stop here, and if there's any question, I would be so much welcoming to answering those questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that presentation and for sticking to time. I'd like to now invite one of the discussants. Perhaps I might be able to start with you, Ali Mamouri, if you might be able to offer some thoughts. We ask that discussants just limit their time to 3 minutes, as there'll be more time for Q&A and discussion later.
Sure, thank you so much. Thank you for the paper. It's a fascinating topic. It has been less done about Africa in this area, especially in Nigeria. For me, was a new area to expand my knowledge. And I'm looking forward to read the whole paper soon, fortunately. I just have a few suggestions. Probably you already considering this suggestion, but if you have been missed, then it's good to add them. It's good to know the form of misinformation and disinformation. Is it some kind of conspiracy narrative? Is it fake news? Is it making up achievement for the government, promotion, fake promotion for the government, what kind of misinformation and disinformation is common in regard to elections in Nigeria. It's good to know also which platforms is more used there. We know that in each country there is different platforms. There are some platforms might be blocked or not blocked by the government. The people have interest in a specific platform. In Twitter, in Arab world, more people are leaning toward Twitter. In Iran, we have more people toward Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. In Iraq, is more people are so Facebook people, etc. So it would be good to know the platform that is used mostly by the government to target people and to create the alternative narrative. Another suggestion is there any kind of, there should be some kind of demonization of the opposition, how the government is demonizing the opposition. Do they use some kind of affiliation with Western countries, with other foreign countries, with LGBT communities, about the social norms, this kind of stuff? It would be very interesting as well. You mentioned the sectarian aspect. It's very interesting. We know in Nigeria we have Muslims and Christians. So it will be good also to know that some more context, that is it just between Christians and Muslims, or there is some kind of narrative, sectarian narrative in this regard among the Muslims. I guess probably Christians are accusing Muslims of being affiliated with Salafism or the Saudis or something like that, and the other part are accusing of affiliation with the West and some kind of stuff which is common in other countries. This context will be very interesting to be added. Lastly, I think it's good to have some kind of geopolitics of the narratives in Nigeria. Usually the narratives that the state is making for promoting themselves is affiliated with the current event happening in the region and in the globe at the larger scale. It's good to have this connection, that how they are making it connected to the other part of the region and in the world. This is the general ideas that came to my mind, and thanks again for your presentation.
Thank you so much for those thoughts, Ali. I'll hand it off to our second discussant, Professor Ihsan Yilmaz.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Abu Bakar. This is a very interesting paper. I just checked your abstract here, and I know that the paper is still developing and you'll do more. I'll touch upon a few of these things, and I'll also add my own additional comments. So it wasn't clear to me. Maybe you can respond to this during the Q&A session, not now, or maybe while writing your paper, we can attend to it. So it wasn't clear to me who are the exact players, parties, opposition groups, and also government is one side, but is it monolithic, or are there different government organizations doing different things? Are there any conflict between them, military, judiciary, and other intelligence and other groups? And also who is doing what exactly? So we talk about misinformation and disinformation. So what kind of disinformation and misinformation they are spreading? You talked about conspiracy theories, right? And what is the content of these conspiracy theories? What are they actually saying? So it would be nice in the paper to have some empirical evidence showing us the content, and also with sources, who is saying what. This would be useful. And also I am wondering, you don't have to do it, but I am wondering, where is the West in this, and Russia and China? So how are they framed? Is there a populist element to it? Are they blaming or demonizing others as being part of, or agents, puppets of the West or Russia or China, who's saying this for others? So is there any anti-Western element? And also, speaking of Russia and China, is there any sign of authoritarian diffusion? Are they learning from these countries? Because we know that especially Russia is big in this disinformation operations. So are they learning anything from them, or are they importing any technology, any know-how? And also a comparative angle, maybe in your conclusion, comparing Africa with other cases. I mentioned Russia, for instance. Turkey has been doing it, and Bülent will talk about it in a few minutes. So you don't have to do it again, but in conclusion, while talking about if your findings can travel to other contexts, if they are generalizable, maybe it might be a good idea to a few other countries, and some papers will be presented in this workshop. So they may also give you an idea for this comparative angle, but as I said, you don't have to do it. And then, yeah, you mentioned a few things in your abstract, and I would love to see them, of course, in the full paper, and it will be a very interesting contribution to the book. Thank you.